to have you here. And I should also thank Hassan Technologies for sponsoring this lecture series. Before I announce our speaker for today, they mentioned that next week, in fact, requested our professors to invited a joint appointment, first of all, at this department and also computer science department, by the name of Dr. Ravi Kumar, provide what he's working right now on with a number of students, tackle home-based computing at Sonoma State University. Because he has been in fact doing this project for several years. That's 2 weeks from now. For today, our speaker is Dr. Mudhafar Hassan-ALi, who is a system architect at Zhone Technologies. And his talk is on the Municipal wireless mesh as broadband platform. So let me just give a little introduction for him. Dr. Mudhafar Hassan-ALi recently joined Zhone Technologies as a system architect responsible for development of XDSL and GPON access systems. Prior to that, Mudhafar was a solar startup, solar startup Enphase Energy, where he was a principal systems engineer responsible for developing computational algorithms and power line communication systems. He was instrumental in developing with high efficiency power tracking techniques and system analytics for photovoltaic power generations. Prior to Enphase Energy, Mudhafar spent 11 years at Alcatel-Lucent, where he became a fellow in 2002 for outstanding contribution in the field of access network architecture. During his tenure at Alcatel-Lucent, he served at various standardization bodies, including Metro Ethernet Forum, where he was the principal representative for Alcatel. Mudhafar obtained his PhD in electrical engineering at WPI at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and a STEM in engineering management from Febuary. He has several publications in the optical engineering, several patents in the field of communication and algorithm.
Thank you, Ali, for the introduction. And I'm delighted to be here to have the opportunity to give a talk. I'm very hopeful that you will find it interesting, and hopefully will also be able to start dialogue, not a monologue, where we can share our thoughts and ideas. So, can you switch? I should be able to. So, the topic I'm going to be talking to today is the municipal wireless mesh networks and how it is not as a broadband platform. And so my agenda is going to be introduction first. So I'm going to be talking about why I selected this particular topic. Then I'm going to dive a little bit about the technology itself. Then from there, I would like to show you how I was thinking about evaluating this platform, how good or how bad, what are the shortcomings and so forth. And but then we'll see that unfortunately it didn't fly. It failed to some extent, this wireless mesh networks. And then we will end up with the conclusions to see what we can do in order for this type of platform to fly in the future, hopefully. Maybe we add some wings or something for it to fly, but we'll see how it's going to be. And then I will end up with the Q&A from the audience. Okay, so introduction. Back 3 years ago or so, I was on a fellowship at MIT, so I was looking for a topic to basically study. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's see, does it work? Oh yeah. Man.
Green one for you.
Okay, so basically, I felt a lot of hype going on in the area. This is in Cambridge and Boston. Not only in that area, but also the whole United States. So I felt, and since I came from telecom background, I wanted to understand whether it's going to be a threat to Alcatel, to maybe others, and so forth. So I wanted, and also I was interested in wireless communication in general. So I wanted to get some ideas about what's going on with this hype. So back then, this is 2006, 2007, you will see the map of the United States. You'll see a lot of activities going on at that point, 2006. It started about 2005, I would say. 2006 kind of the crescendo rate. 2007, people started asking the question whether it's going to fly or not. And you'll see here the activities, the number of cities and so forth and so on. The number, by the way, sometimes people call it MUNI, M-U-N-I. You know, these are kind of the nicknames for these type of networks. So you will see that, you know, okay, when you look at the growth, there is a growth. I mean, there was no question about it that it was, you know, people thought it was going to fly, meaning every municipality in the United States, at least, would have a network somehow. So I said, okay, well, let me take a look. Let's see why there was some interest in the subject. Primarily, it was driven by the municipalities, meaning the local governments. When I say municipalities, I mean like towns, cities, and so forth, villages in the whole United States. And not only actually wireless, but also they were thinking even to do fiber-based. But that was too expensive, so they focused on this one because it's very easy. We'll see why it is easy and less expensive than other platforms. So in their politics, what they said, or what they presented to their constituents, is that it will improve the services in the city. Well, that means that, you know, when someone wants to go and check a building to see if it complies with the code, they don't have to write stuff and then go back and type the report. So they will have a handheld device and they just do their stuff and they, you know, shoot the file while the device is connected to the wireless mesh. Done. And other activities that could be beneficial for the towns and cities. And then also they said, okay, there are places in the municipalities that are, you know, kind of disadvantaged, meaning there are not much economical activities going on. Like if you go to really, it's extremely vivid. When you go to Cambridge, you know, has got MIT and Harvard and a lot of people who are extremely wealthy. But at the same time, you could actually get to places where really they look like ghettos. I mean, nothing, you know, they just, you know, poor people. So they were thinking, okay, if we drive those guys towards the 20th century, then maybe they will be able to pick up the pace and create some business around it. And also, this is this is another driver. And the other driver is public safety. So they could install, you know, like cameras and so forth that could, you know, be able to see what's going on, if there are any crimes, and especially, you know, after 9/11, people became very cognizant about the subject. And then the digital inclusion, again, you know, for people, and they want to push broadband not only for business services, but also for residential. So if you look at it, it's actually very honorable for them to think about it this way, but there are a lot of politics behind it. So now, in order for them to install these networks, they have to come up with a business model. So there were two different business models. Either they install these networks themselves, the municipalities, and they run them, or else they would hire somebody to actually come in and install these networks for them. Now the question is who's going to pay the bill, and how if someone wants to come in and install these networks, how they're going to make money. I mean, eventually that needs to be taken into account. Otherwise then there is no sustainability the business model. Yeah.
Yeah, what are those numbers there in that
You mean the table?
Yeah, the table, yeah.
Okay. So what we are showing here is basically there's a website, which is this one, that kept track of the activities. And basically they look at what's going on in the cities and towns and municipalities, and they say, okay, there's another city that is interested. Either they are building or they are planning in doing so. So basically then they increment the number. So these are kind of the number of municipalities, okay, as per the type of network. Okay, so like for example, some of them they were interested in hot zones, and that's it. No mesh, no nothing. Okay, so again, this is an indication of some real interest, a genuine interest.
Yeah, and the question is that now, what sort of services were they talking about?
We'll talk about it.
Just a cheaper play or what?
We'll talk about it. Absolutely, this is a very good question. Okay, so let's dive into the mesh network. So what we have basically a bunch of access points that are connected via wireless communication means. Okay, very much like you have a bunch of Ethernet switches. They are interconnected using wireline or fiber. Okay, they will know who is connected to whom, and they will be able to come up with a network connectivity, and they will be able then to forward the packets properly. So here you can visualize this is a user, and this one is the server or the network. So those guys will be cooperative. These access points will be cooperative in getting the packets from the user to the network and vice versa. Okay, very similar again to any type of IP or Ethernet type of network, but the difference here is that we are carrying all the traffic wirelessly. Now, okay, it's not just a stomp down. You just disconnect a fiber or copper link and just establish a wireless link. It's actually much more than that because of the trickiness of the wireless communication needs. So there's an access point, and usually it's implemented using IEEE 802.xx, and namely, specifically, and that's what's actually going on right now, is .11s. So if someone in this institution who would like to get into the specifics, technology-wise, this is it. This is what you want to focus on. It's really more or less software-based type of technical activity. At the same time, there is this, which is sort of like a Wi-Fi on steroid. I mean, it's much better technology than Wi-Fi. It's called WiMAX. You must have heard this term before. And specifically, 2 years ago, they came up also with an activity to create what's called relay networks, which is really similar to wireless mesh. They don't call it wireless mesh, they call it relay network. Again, same type of deal. They would like to be able to connect these nodes wirelessly with each other and be able then to get the traffic through the network as such. So it happens that these access points will receive or send packets to the user, as well as they actually swap traffics between themselves. And so there will be an active route, and there will be a standby route, just like you have in other networks, like in the case of Ethernet, in the case of SONET, and so forth and so on. The biggest difference here is the PHY and the physical layer. That's really where it boils down to. And by the way, so in general, this is called access point, mesh access point, and usually the guy who's connected to the backbone via a wireline means it's called portal point or mesh portal point. So these are kind of the two terms you may want to just keep in mind, just in case you want to talk about this one in a technical means, or somebody who's familiar with the technology more. So as such, if you think about it, it's really just another cellular type of communication network. The main difference here, it's wireless, both of them are wireless. The classical cellular type of network has a very, very big coverage. So each cell, at least you are talking about, probably a mile to maybe 10 miles. In this case, we are talking about 200, 300 meters. So very small. And of course, that depends on where you are. Meaning, if you are in Boston or in San Francisco, that's what we're talking about. Why? Because the concentration of users is so tremendous, you have to have that coverage. Otherwise, Wi-Fi wouldn't cut. Wi-Fi was meant for a LAN type of environment. So it's inside the building, that's outside the building. So there are a lot of tricks to actually make this this physical technology to be compatible with an outdoor settings. And that's one of the things we'll see that's actually kind of killed it, because it wasn't able to provide the service that people were hoping to get via these networks. Okay, so so now I think we have some understanding is that somewhere these access points will be distributed. So you can think of them, these are very small devices, and we'll see some images to just illustrate the picture here. They will be placed somewhere, on a building or on a light pole or something. Okay? The biggest issue here is two things. You have to provide electricity to it, although people actually now are thinking of using solar with batteries, but that will create a lot of problems in terms of cost. Uh-oh, what happened? I didn't do it. Okay. And so then you have this downtown, for example. You have buildings and you have cars and so forth. People are roaming around. And you have these devices installed everywhere. Like I said, there are two issues. The first issue is the electricity to provide power. Second one is to provide the backbone. Because at the end of the day, you have to be connected to the backbone network, which happens to be wireline. So you have to have a way to actually connect somewhere, somehow. I'm assuming this is not me. So, what are the benefits? Why did they even think about the wireless mesh networks? Is because reliability and resiliency. Meaning, if you recall, we had an active route and a standby route. So in case if one of the access points died, then another guy will pick up. So that's one of the advantages of this topology. And since it's wireless, then it would be nice to actually have this coverage so easily. Basically, if you think about it, it's just like you have a light, and you have multiple these lights, across along the road, and one of them, goes dead. So then you're not going to be 100% dark. Some of the light will be coming from the adjacent light poles. Very similar.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
So what should be the distance between these two nodes? I mean, what you are saying?
It depends on your design of these access points, but by and large, the ones that were deployed in the actual fields, they were about between 250 to about 500 meters. So we're talking about very short.
So if somehow I am beyond that range, then how can I connect it to the
Well, tough luck. That's reason you will see that by adding more of these access points, you will be able then to have more coverage. So in case if you have very dense area or very spread area, then obviously you have to think about how to deploy it. And that the deployment itself also is a tricky business. And that's one of the things also they have to think about, and I'll show you a slide about how to deploy it and what kind of tools and so forth. So certainly you have to do network planning ahead of time. Otherwise, yes, you could actually shoot yourself in the foot. And so talking about the scalability, again, if you need more bandwidth, you just add another access point. Because each access point will pick up, so imagine you have X number of users, okay, and they will be sharing one access point, and the access point throughput is, let's say, 10 meg. Then each one is going to get 10 divided by X. But if you have another access point, then obviously the number of users will be divided by 2 and so forth and so on. But it doesn't come for free, because you have to have more bandwidth on the backbone side. Because otherwise, I mean, if you have a lot of wireless bandwidth, but the problem is that you don't have access to the backbone, then you're dead. So these are kind of things that you need to think about in deploying these networks. And it is not an easy task for sure, and these are one of the reasons why it didn't fly that well, because it didn't provide good coverage and didn't provide the expected quality of service level that the people were accustomed to when it comes to like DSL or cable. Decentralized because you don't have a tower, just like we do in the cellular type of network. Here everybody is kind of working on his own. Obviously the exception is the portal point, where you have to have a way back to the backbone. But you could have multiple portal points. So you can think about it. You can start with one, and then if the bandwidth is growing, then you add another portal point and so forth. Relatively inexpensive. The main reason is because it was piggybacking on the Wi-Fi technology. And at that point, Wi-Fi technology became so ubiquitous, and millions of these devices were sold, in laptops and so forth. So it became economy of scale. It did pretty good. But obviously, it is not the same Wi-Fi that you have on your laptop. It's the front end. You have to design the RF side of it in order to provide more power and so forth. So you will be able then to go farther. Ease of deployment because the only thing, like I said before, you just mount it and be done with it. As opposed to, let's say, if you're talking about GPON, you have to dig, trenches and so forth. This is just put it in. Well, I mean, we even actually investigated that one, so we talked to people who actually deployed it to estimate how much time and so forth. In reality, it was very competitive compared to DSL and cable and others. Very easy. Again, the cost, because it's Wi-Fi based, the hope was it was going to be very expensive. Now, sometimes what you do is that you could use, even for the portal, you don't have to have actually a physical wireline. You could actually have WiMAX, so Wi-Fi to the user and WiMAX to a centralized tower-based system where you can actually connect them from the tower to the backbone. So not every portal has to be tethered or wired to the network, but you could actually have another radio. Okay, so two radios, one Wi-Fi, so that it could talk to the user, and the other one to talk to the backbone, so that means. So there were also a bunch of actual companies doing that type of these type of devices. And of course, again, it's self-organized in the sense that it just basically they know, since there is also the congestion information could be also routed as part of the wireless mesh protocol. You could also then reroute the traffic accordingly. So it's easier in that sense, and you can reconfigure them accordingly. Okay, so basically what they did is that this is the light pole. So they bring someone, an electrician of some sort, who would take this device. I mean, you will see it looks like a barrel. It's kind of funny looking. Not because of anything other than so that they would be able to put these antennas. And these antennas usually they have multiple sectors, and before you know it, they just look like a barrel. So they come up with this shape, and also it would withstand the winds and so forth. So they would mount it on the pole, sometimes either on the pole itself or on the top where the light is. They put it right there. And actually, if you drive on 880, you will see some of the remaining devices hanging on the signs, and the big signs that shows, okay, this is exit, whatever. So they mounted over there too. This is in Fremont. If you drive, you'll see it, for sure. You'll see probably two of them. Different shape, but who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, they were providing Wi-Fi connectivity, and that's about it. Again, they needed that type of setup to be able to connect to the specific electricity, but eventually whatever. Now, this one is a snapshot for for how to design your network is basically you have to have a software that will simulate the propagation, wireless propagation. So let's actually go through the steps, how they go about and do the installation. So the first thing they would do, there are two activities. First of all, the physical site. You need to have a place where you're going to mount this device on. So this is this route. First of all, you have to acquire that site. So you have to get the okay from somebody. In this case, it's going to be the municipality. That's the biggest thing, the difference between a municipality type of network versus someone who wants to deploy that type of service, but not under the municipality's umbrella. Because that's a big problem. Where are you going to put that? If you don't have the building and so forth, where are you going to put that? As opposed to the regular cellular type of network, you have only one tower, and usually they do the same stuff. They have to acquire the site, and they have to build these big towers and so forth. Big deal. I mean, they cost a lot of money. We're talking about on the order of multiple $100,000. So it's very expensive. And then site engineering to see if there's any blockage, any problems, the civil engineering type of problems. At the same time, the double E guy would be, like I said, would be doing this type of work. So he will have some relationship with this guy who's going to say, okay, this is a good location. Let me put it in there. What do you think? So they will go ahead and say, okay, this is the map. I'm going to put it in there. Let's see what the propagation is. And they will try to actually make this one as rounded as possible, or focusing on the area where the possible users. And then network planning, meaning, okay, the routing and the routers and where the switches will be and how they're going to connect to the backbone. And then as soon as this is done, this is the planning stage, then we'll go to the installation. So as soon as they identify the place, they're going to go ahead and take these trucks with the CAN in them and so forth, and they will have an electrician that will install these devices. And then, believe it or not, they actually do this, network optimization. We talked to them, a bunch of different places, even down in Texas. What they do is that they monitor what's going on. They will actually get calls from the constituents, from the guys who are using the network. If they see a lot of problems in a specific area, then they will add another one, or they adjust it and so forth. So there will be some tweaking. Okay? So it's not, they're not just done as soon as they install the thing. And then maintenance and upgrade. Sometimes you need to schedule upgrade to the software and so forth. Okay, so I think I gave you a glimpse of the technology and the activities at that point. Question is, at that point, I was asking myself, is this going to be a competitive platform? It sounds too good to be true. So how am I going to be able to judge in my research that this is going to make it, or no, actually it has some iffy things that we need to take care of, or no, it's not going to fly, period. So, I mean, it's very tough because it's a very, there are so many different things that you have to take into account. So I needed some metrics. And these metrics basically, hopefully these metrics are quantitative in nature, meaning I can then eventually I will assign score a system, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And then be able, at the end of the day, I will have some feeling whether it's going to make sense or not. So that was actually one of the things that I needed to look around and see platforms in general, how people could evaluate platforms. So this is actually turned out to be a very interesting subject. Yeah, go ahead.
What is the frequency at which the wireless mesh runs approximately?
Again, same thing, 2.5G.
It's 2.5G?
Yeah, for the .G, and 5G for the .11a. So 11G and 11a. And the way they were thinking of actually using this one, it's good that you brought up the subject. They were trying to actually build what's called Multiradio access points, where they have more than just one flavor of the Wi-Fi. So they would have 11G and 11A. 11G, usually it's very popular among the users. 11A, unfortunately, nobody actually uses it. Why? Because it runs at very high frequency, and as such, the signal dies quickly. So it's very short distance. But it turns out, when you use 11A in the outside, and especially when you're talking about in municipal type of setting, where you have canyons of buildings, right? Then it becomes like a waveguide. If you guys are familiar with waveguide stuff, it's like a waveguide. So then you basically aim it towards like a, the intersections and so forth. Then the propagation will be very beautiful. Then it will link up with the one down the street, the other access point. So as such, one of the things that people started building back then was to have multiradio, like I said, 11A and 11G. The only problem is that as soon as you have trees and you have foliage and so forth, so that, like I said, there was hype. The hype, people built some hopes on it. And then the question is, at that height, is it going to fly? So that's the question. So, like I said, to answer this question, you have to have metrics for you to be able to judge. Now, so before I jump my gun and say, okay, these are the metrics, of course I did study the metrics for other platforms, just trying to learn how people thought about evaluating metrics, platforms. I wanted to understand what kind of applications. I think someone asked me the application. I think you did. So the thought was to have 3 different categories of applications. One for residential, for end users. One for business. Remember what they were thinking? They wanted to actually provide a cheap broadband to their constituents in the municipality, so that they could these small businesses could thrive. Why? Because they have now cheap. Internet connectivity, cheap voice of IP, and so forth, so on. Okay, and then the third one is the government. At the end of the day, the municipality has to use it somehow to be able then to do something with it. So, in this residential application, internet access, this is what we know. IPTV, which is sort of like it's just too much to comprehend. At least coming from this background, I didn't feel this is going to fly, because it requires a lot of bandwidth, unless you do something different other than Wi-Fi. So if it is Wi-Fi, this is no good, period. LBS, no, this is good. LBS is basically, this is the location-based services. So as you are moving around and you're in that neighborhood, immediately the pop-ups will be adapted, meaning it will tell you where you should go for a lunch or a dinner and so forth. Or it could locate your buddies in that neighborhood and things of that nature. This is what's called LBS. And there was also a lot of hype on this one as well. And then mobile media, meaning you can download your stuff as you're moving, like songs and music. For businesses, VPN normally. I mean that's basic for business. If you guys are familiar with it. LBS, same thing, same as the other one. And mobile media, same thing. I mean it's very similar. Okay. The government, on the other hand, they have a bunch of things. They have public safety, public internet. Public safety, I think we mentioned what it is. It's basically connecting some of these video type of devices along the way to be able to have a consensus of what's going on in the neighborhood, for crime control and so forth. And then smart grid, and this is now it's booming. This is where some of the money that Obama is allocating is going to go into this one for sure. So if this one picks up, then it may drive back this guy back again. And I'll discuss this one in a second. And mobile phone. So the mobile phone or any other devices they would like to actually have for their employees to be able to connect. Like I said, they want to inspect a place. They want to have a handheld device. They could write a report, send it wirelessly to the offices and be done with it. So smart grid and automatic meter reading. These are the 2 applications that are burgeoning right now. Okay, so given the applications, given what I know about the technology, given what's going on in the other broadband platforms, so I came up with this list. I'm going to bore you to death if I were to go one by one and discuss them, in details. But let me go quickly and just say a few words for each one. So standard interface, you need it because otherwise nobody is going to buy the service from you. You have to have it on your laptop to be able to use it. So IEEE based or something that could be accepted. Attractiveness, meaning people will be able to say, yeah, I would like to have it. Why? Because it's cheap. And it's convenience. It's next to my door. I should be able to connect to it. It should not be a big deal. And then operational simplicity, when I deploy the system, I want to be able to deploy it quickly. I mean, it's very straightforward. So deployment ease, maintainability, should be able to maintain it quickly. Resiliency, we talked about it, all these attributes of the mesh network. So we're not going to be left, in a bad shape with those. Security, has to have security, or else people would not actually be interested in it. And bandwidth efficiency, of course, if you have a very small amount of bandwidth, like dial-up, nobody's going to be interested that much, unless it's definitely for free. And then coverage. I think you asked the question about the coverage. Definitely. If you don't have good coverage, you don't have a good solution. Open system. Open system meaning people could come in and deploy new applications. And this is one of the things the FCC is driving to be able to open the network, as opposed to like networks controlled by Verizon and AT&T. Those guys would not allow you, period. Okay, so these are kind of the elements. Again, it's a very complex problem to solve or to predict. Multiple parties, meaning you could deploy multiple systems maybe in the same neighborhood, how it's going to play out. And network neutrality, meaning the guy who controls, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this term, also it became a huge hype 2-3 years ago. Basically, the guy who owns the network shall not exert some rules to disadvantage the guy, the service providers that are trying to reach their customers through that guy's network. Sometimes what they do is they apply basically policies to disadvantage their packets. Let's say I'm Verizon and another company would like to use my network to access their customers. I'm Verizon, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually create trouble to the packets that will be flowing from the customer that's hanging off of my network and the service provider trying to reach that person. How? By applying very bad quality of service. It wouldn't give them bandwidth. They would start actually dropping their packets and so forth. Environmentally friendly, meaning it wouldn't hurt people, and low power. Okay, so I took these metrics, and of course you can come up with your own metrics. I'm not saying this is the way it is. No. These are my metrics, and I wanted to evaluate this platform. I want to convince myself this platform has merits. So what I did basically, I took all these metrics and assigned to them from 1 to, should be from 0 to 3. So 3 meaning high, it will score high, 2 medium, and 1 obviously low. 0 meaning it doesn't apply or something. So this is what you see here. If all of them have the same weight, if they have all these parameters or metrics, they have the same weights, then it's just a matter of really taking the curve, the enclosed curve, with respect to the total curve, and then you will judge. It will give you an indication whether it has any this platform has any merit. Well, if you do the math, the competitiveness of this platform is medium, meaning it is not very competitive. So it's standing on a shaky ground. So at that point, I felt like probably it's not going to fly that well, unless a miracle or the economy is so good, it doesn't matter. The business case, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad or sustainability. People will chip in money and things will just keep moving. And that happened with other stuff. But in this case, we'll see in a second what it means. So why fail? So now it's medium, looks good, people want it, especially the municipality. We had the technology sort of, so what happened, why it failed? So basically, so we need to think about these issues in a more global way. So you need to think about the hype in a realistic way. So look at it, again, you have to think about how it's going to fly. How it's going to fly is when you have a business model that is going to be able to sustain itself. Right? So people actually predicted this type of revenue generation. That was back in 2006, 2007. This is what they predicted. This is how much it's going to be making revenue. Well, guess what? 2007, actually it was much less than this one, but it made some. But now, 2008, it's actually it's like really meager. This 2007, I'm pretty sure it's going to be zero. So why? Forecast didn't reflect some of the knowledge we had about the problem. Because if you think about it, this is another way of thinking about it. So what we did, there's what's called diffusion, technology diffusion theory or model. Usually, if you do that type of research, you look at that aspect of the problem. Is okay, I have a new technology, new services, and so forth. How it's going to diffuse in the marketplace? How it's going to diffuse among people? So there's a model for it, and you can apply that model for pretty much any technology. So what you do is that you establish the model and you identify the parameters. Of course, I'm not going to go into that one here. All I'm going to say is that I established the model and I took the preliminary information over that table, the first slide. I used that one to basically sort of like curve fitting and start playing with the parameters until I fit the initial condition. Okay, to show, given what we know at that point, given the deployment we know, okay, and given that we know there is a model for diffusing new technology, how much time is it going to take us to actually establish 50% deployment in the United States? If everything is cool and dandy, 2011, and we have 50%, meaning in 2 years we should see 50% of municipalities with these networks. Far from any reality. Actually, I would say almost all of them, except for a few of them, they all went belly up. I mean, you heard about what happened in San Francisco, for instance. Fell apart, and so forth. So the model is good, but you have to think about the other stuff. And so there's another model for diffusing the technology. What happens is that when you have a product and you want to sell it to people, you have different types of users and so forth. And you have basically visionaries who can consume the technology quickly and they will appreciate it, just like what happened in Boston and elsewhere. And there are other type of people called pragmatists. Until you show me the benefit, and until you show me other people are actually using it, I'm not going to use it, period. When I see the benefit of it, then I will jump in. Now, so this is the distribution of those guys, meaning they will pick up, at some point in time, all of them will be satisfied. All of them will take the technology and they will be done. It's like a bell curve. This is basically the distribution of how many people, or how many institutions that adopted the technology. This one is another bell, but for the other type of people. Pragmatists and late adopters. The bulk, 70%, 80% of them will be in this one. The problem is that this bulk, we were talking about, all knobbed to the pragmatists and late adopters. Those guys don't get fooled easily. Okay? So you have to cross what's called the chasm. And this model is called Crossing the Chasm. It's by Moore, a guy who actually wrote a book on the subject a while ago. And so there are a lot of elements you have to make sure that this is going to be aligned for this technology to cross the chasm. Otherwise, it's going to fall on its face, period. And that's exactly what happened. And so why? Because no viable business model. For example, Metrofy, which deployed the network in Mountain View and other places, just went belly up a few months ago. And now their network actually was acquired by the municipality itself. And municipality, cannot really run that type of networks. It's just too much for municipality. It requires specialty. So there's no sustainability to create money and so forth to sustain it. No funding. And then unfit technology. As soon as they deployed it, we started actually seeing on the web people are complaining because the network, the medium changes over time. It's very simple because it's wireless. And since you are operating at 2.5G, it's a very high frequency. Cannot penetrate easily inside the building. And most of the people wanted to use it inside the building, not mobile. And no support from regulators. Well, the problem is that the regulators will set the stage for how these different stakeholders will start actually interacting with each other. How Verizon will play a role in this dynamics. Well, guess what? Verizon and AT&T rallied in 17 different states, and they banned the deployment of these networks. So why? Because the government didn't care, or federal government. So we need also to set the stage among the FCC and others to set the stage for this technology to pick up. And then, obviously, last year, the downturn, and guess what? You don't have to even think about this one. It just, by definition, it killed it.
Now, what was the second, the low one, low commercial? I mean, the top left. Top left.
Right here?
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the cumulative, and this is the PDF.
Okay.
Okay, so conclusions. Now, we saw the demise, unfortunately, but is there any way to fix it? I think there will be, especially with I think the government is scrambling, trying to find ways to create jobs. I think this is because every municipality will have it, and we have, you know how many municipalities we have in the United States? 26,000. So each one will require definitely a crew and stuff that they need to buy, trucks and so forth. It will create a lot of economical dynamics. If you were to push it through the government, I think they will push it. I'm sure about it. So first of all, we need to really differentiate between hype and reality. And so that's one of the things we want to think as a technologist, as people who have more than just hear the news and okay, you know the head, but to think about it in a different way. And again, one of the things you could think about when you see hype is how am I going to be able to measure this hype? So metrics. Think about metrics. How are we going to come up with this metrics? So to become a competitive platform, I mean, we showed the metrics, and so you want to go back and try to address all the shortcomings of these metrics that one didn't score that high, and then fix them. So better technology. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it needs better digital signal processors for these Wi-Fi type of devices, and it may require actually low frequencies. I mean, it's not like it came from God. Thou shalt we have to use 2.5G. No, I mean we could use something else. But that means that then you have to go to IEEE and so forth. It requires a lot of push to make this happen. And then business model. One of the things that could actually lead to a success is that the municipality will provide some funding, for example. This is one model. There are a lot of different models we can talk about it, but I think probably don't have enough time to do it. But the municipality should provide some funding. It will let people to come in to deploy their networks, and then at least they should be the anchor customer, so that they could at least create a cash flow to the operator, the guys who are installing these devices. So by doing so, then you will have some sustainability to the operator, and at the same time, they may be able to recoup some of their expenses by providing mobile services and so forth, and people could actually buy it maybe more competitive than what they get from Verizon and AT&T. I think those guys need to be really competed against. I mean, I just don't like their services, personally. So I would like to see something like this that will help maybe Comcast, for example. They don't have a wireless network. Comcast should have somehow a means to provide wireless, and maybe this is a good model for them. They should have done. And actually, I don't want to drop this one, but Google is pushing this one big time. Google, they want to provide. What I'm saying is exactly what they want to provide. It is a platform, broadband platform, wireless, open access, so that they can provide their services, the advertisement and all that stuff. As soon as you open your device, it comes for very cheap and for free, but then the ads will come along with it, just like we see right now with their maps and other stuff, other service they provide. Regulation and policies, of course, because you want to have a way to manage these dynamics between the incumbents, for example, and between the guys who are coming, the newcomers to the service, and also how the relationship between the service providers and the municipality. What's the protocol between them? It needs also to be addressed by the regulators. And then, last but not least, the government funding. I believe, and especially now you have wireless mesh networks, you could actually deploy the automatic meter reading (AMR) or the smart grid, because then you have it everywhere. You would be able to control the grid pretty good. And as a matter of fact, right now I know, because I work in this startup company in the power generation business. Most of the utility companies, they would like to actually have wireless means to control their networks. They don't want to use, for example, communication over power line, which I did some development in that startup company. The problem, because they have enough problems inside the United States transmission networks, it is just not possible for them to use it. So wireless mesh is the way to go for them. I mean, they made their mind, and I think it's just a matter of the government putting this money, I think $10 billion to revamp the transmission network, talk about power. And obviously more entrepreneurs, people who come in and come up with ideas and thoughts, in any direction you could think about, software, hardware. Wow. And of course, everybody needs to push maybe the legislator, the local one, to actually provide the funding to that type of network. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done. I'm sorry that it took me more time than I expected.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now, how do you compare this one with the WiMAX? Because WiMAX, has been in fact on for some time, and in fact Intel has been also supporting it, and it has in fact it's covering now a broader operation. So how do you compare this to it?
That's an excellent question. These Wi-Fi and WiMAX, these are just technologies. It just so happened that they picked Wi-Fi because it was available in the laptops. WiMAX, currently, I think this year they started having the WiMAX available when you want to build a laptop for yourself, for Dell or HP. They will actually give you the option. I think they paid like $50 or something. So unfortunately, WiMAX didn't exist at that point. But as a technology, it fits much better than Wi-Fi, for sure. So I'm hoping that at some point in time, WiMAX becomes more available in our devices, in mobile devices, and computers and so forth, be able to take advantage of the Wi-Fi, WiMAX capabilities. So it's just a matter of time, really, more than anything else. It just didn't exist at that point. But it did exist to actually use it as a backbone or a backhaul connectivity for these devices. Some, not all, some actually try to use it, like Motorola, for instance. They use it for backhaul. So Wi-Fi towards the user, WiMAX towards the tower. Yeah, please.
When you look at your failure statistics, did you do any sort of differentiation by municipality type? So, for instance, size, geographic regions, anything like that? Meaning, the failure rates could be very large in large, downtown communities like San Francisco, but it might be a better success rate at a medium-sized city that has less concrete and steel, better deployment plans, things like that. Anecdotal type of analysis or research, if you wish. Yeah. Meaning we didn't really go and put snippers and so forth to try to establish a more accurate reading of how bad or how good the link is. No, we did not do that. Because do you have any sense of what the penetration was by community size?
Oh, for sure. For example, in the case of, at least that's what we were told, in Mountain View, Mountain View is not huge. It's about, I think, 2 or 3 miles, the radius of it and so forth. I think they said the number of subscribers at that point was 2,000. 2,000 subscribers. That's a very large number of users, especially for a fledgling network like this one. They didn't have a lot of expertise and experiences about the issues and how to fix it. As a matter of fact, I can give you another anecdote. One of the biggest name in this industry is Tropos, also in Silicon Valley. It's a company. And they've been struggling, since the inception of it, back in, I think, 2003 or 2002, if I remember correctly. Those guys didn't have a lot of experience. So what they did, they built these devices, and they mount them on these poles. Guess what? In a couple of months, they had to take all of them down, about 200, 300 of these devices down. Guess why? Because they didn't expect about the surge problems that could come either through lightning or through the surge that comes over the power lines, because they need to provide power. So they had to actually take all of them down. I mean, you can imagine how much frustration there will be. So it's not only the wireless problems, but also other problems that occur and make people say, this is not really a good technology. For sure, if you have a very dense area, a lot of buildings and so forth, definitely it's going to be a challenge to make this happen. On the east, for example, on the east coast, the biggest problem for those guys, I did talk to 3 municipalities in the neighborhood: Cambridge, Brookline, and Boston. Brookline, the biggest problem is it's an old neighborhood, all residential, a lot of trees, big trees. Unlike Cambridge, no, I mean, you don't see a lot of trees really. It was in an industrial area back 100 years ago or so. So you didn't see a lot of that stuff. That was not the problem. Those guys were very scared that said, okay, well, the problem is that now we are doing some measurement and now we are almost November and there were no trees, nothing. So we could not see the effect. And they were trying to deploy it in, I think they said either January or November or February of 2006, I believe. If I remember correctly. So they said, okay, we're going to deploy them, but we don't know how it's going to pan out with these trees. So again, we didn't have much visibility, other than, at least in Fremont, I believe, if I remember correctly, actually people started shouting and giving calls to the Metrofite, which was the operator for that network, saying, it basically didn't perform that well. Please.
What was the problem with security?
Security is, in general, wireless has this sort of like the image that anybody could tap in and could see what you're doing, right? Now, if you look at the Wi-Fi in general, or 802 dot whatever, they equipped it with a lot of different ways to enhance the security. So security, other than the fact that you could actually get a crazy guy with high energy RF device that could just jam the hell out of the 2.5G. And guess what? Then you disrupt the connection. But to actually to think that someone is going to be able to break the key and be able to see what you're doing, it's very hard for me to believe this could be possible. And the proof for that is, I could see all my neighbors, all their access points that I can see them. I can see probably 10. For example, sometimes, I try to see if I could get in. Never did I succeed. So security, other than the fact that it could disrupt and you could create denial of service, it's not really that tricky. I mean, of course, it's better to have a conduit where you push your data through it, like through a copper cable or fiber, but that's not the case in this case. I mean, you have your cell phone. Has anyone heard that security was breached? Probably. I mean, I heard way back when, but that was a different instance and a different setting, and now it's totally different. The protocol is so well shielded with ways to secure it. More questions?
All right.
Okay.
Let me thank our speaker for very interesting.
Thank you very much. I hope it was useful.
It was. I appreciate that. In fact, you talked about the methodology and also how you go about the project, and then what would be look at and so forth, all the parameters. So this is really good.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. Yes, this belongs to someone.
Yeah, it's
That is,
Thank you.